We're all very busy, and there often doesn't feel like there's enough time in the week to get everything done. So what can be done about it, if anything? Sleep, work, eating, and the endless weave of YouTube videos might feel like an inevitable way in which our days will be populated. But if you objectively look at what you do and how long it takes to do the things that you do, have we really depleted all of our available time? Hi everyone, I'm Matthew, and in this video I'd like to talk about taking an objective view at a typical week to try and understand where productivity may lack or where time may be disappearing to if you find yourself wondering where all the hours in your days go. There are 168 hours in a week, which feels like a lot of time which we can use. Time is something I consider very precious. As a commodity, you can't acquire more of. The amount you have only decreases, which is why I think it's so important to use it for things of value and things you like to do, such that you make the most of it. I'm aware there's a book titled 168 Hours, and I've not read it yet, specifically to see how my views on this topic varies from others without mine first being moulded by another philosophy. I think a nice visual way to view where your time goes is really simply in creating a grid of time representing your typical week, where each of these cells represents 30 minutes of time, going from midnight to midnight from left to right. Then down the side we have the days of the week. Sleep is going to apply to everyone, so we'll just plop that down. And this is a representation of my time. I usually sleep about 7.5 to 8 hours from around 10:30 to 6:30, which as you can see wipes out quite a large chunk of time, so roughly 33% already. I also then work 40 hours a week, so I can just stick that down on this grid with a half-hour lunch break, which takes away another 42.5 hours. Just those two alone take up 95 hours, which is about 57% of your week gone. But a good way to look at this is to flip that number around and say that actually you've got 43% of your week available. That's a lot of time. I appreciate that your scenario may be very different. I really do. But take a first principles approach to this, and you'd find that sleep is a needed aspect and work is probably needed. Some may be able to remove this, but I'm going to assume that most people who are watching this will be needing to work. For my personal work week, I like to put in the longer tasks and try and fit the smaller tasks around them. A bit like how you might pack the boot of a car if you're going on holiday. I'd next put in time to relax and spend time with my wife, which happens after dinner. I don't often work on things after dinner, and I don't consider relaxing and watching Netflix a waste of time. It's unwinding time. I enjoy it, and so it's a useful and worthwhile activity. So I can put dinner and preparation in my chart too, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from home, and that's certainly been the case for the last 12 months or so, which affords me a lot of precious time. I choose to focus on project work immediately after work to keep me in the mindset of being productive. Crucially though, I find it important to know what I'll be working on in those blocks, so that I don't procrastinate or deviate from my intent. A small habitual chore that I do consistently in the week is doing the groceries, and I choose to do this in a nearby low-cost supermarket towards the end of their opening hours on a Friday. It's quieter and far easier for me to zip through the shop. I don't really go farther in populating this chart, as most other tasks change week to week. Chores are something that I approach with the mindset of spending the minimum amount of time to get to just the desired amount of outcome, and this might be done in around 2 to 3 hours on a weekend morning, but not every week. The available or spare time is 20%, which means that I can spend the weekend with my wife on day trips, seeing family or friends, while still getting valuable time for my other priorities. Key aspects as to how I like to nest my week together is try-focused, taking into account priority, consistency, and all of this with Parkinson's law kept in mind. For priority, I like to consider if something is, for me, a priority. My wife, family, friends, and projects fit this priority aspect. Consistency is key for me to keep up what I like to do, and this means that I have to take a few steps into making this plan work. One example of this is to batch prepare a freezer full of meals for evening meals, and choosing quick lunches and breakfasts, so I don't consistently spend a fair amount of time on something I consider to have minor importance. Don't get me wrong, it's obviously important to eat. I just consider it time not well spent in the preparation of meals. Doing this gives me some time to fit in project work after work and before dinner. Consistency in doing the shopping on a Friday night helps ensure that I have a free weekend to spend on the big things. And finally, Parkinson's law, which I plan to cover in greater depth in a future video, describes how work expands to fill the time allowed for its completion. This, in my opinion, affects everyone and is difficult to identify yourself. It's really something that you need someone else to point out for you. It's a bit of a cliche where a boss may ask you how long it will take you to do something, you respond, and then they ask you to do it in half the time you said it would take. There's a psychological aspect here into trying to get you to work faster, but not necessarily expect you to complete it in the new time frame. I try to challenge myself in my own schedule, such that I don't dawdle in the time that I allocate to myself. More on this in a future video. My suggestion to you is to have a go at mapping out your week and see what available time you might actually have. You might find where you have time disappearing to, and if there's anything you can do about it. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.